Welcome to this next episode of YouTube, where we're celebrating 2 years of Luna's life. Actually, it was March 25th. Luna turned 2 years of age, and obviously with our recent issue with Malik, we had a little bit of a delay in getting her birthday wish out. But one thing that we know about wolves is that life goes on, and even though we're still heavy with heart of Malik, we need to recognize the young of the exhibit and share with you their moments and triumphs. And that's probably the first thing I can think of as Luna, is when we first met her. Her hair was a little coarse and she had a little round belly, and we treated for some parasites, and we had some issues when we first met her. She was kind of a spunky little pup, but we noticed that she wasn't quite probably up to the same level of activity or the same level of mobility as Bolt's. Obviously the difference is, as we saw, Bolt celebrated his birthday on March 17th. Luna was March 25th, so there's an age difference between them. But we discovered a bone density problem that really caused us some concern. She had actually just rolled off a step in the auditorium. Pretty standard thing for us to let pups kind of run around and get to know things, and Luna rolled off of one of those steps, and which normally would be a non-event for a wolf pup, but in Luna's case it created a problem. And actually the problem was already there in that her bones were very translucent. So that means that on May 16th we ended up doing a surgery and putting a plate in her leg, and after that point of surgery she had to be separated from Bolts, and no roughhousing was allowed. Well, you couldn't tell Luna that no roughhousing was allowed, so we tried as best as we could to maintain their social relationship, but we also had to be mindful of the fact that Luna needed that protection. They needed to be separated. And so what you'll see here in this clip, and hopefully you'll pick up on the kind of the glossy coat, how well her coat's coming in. She's still got a little bit of a hop, but that back right leg is the one that had the femur break, or actually a fracture, not a break, but it was the one where we think the head of the femur just does not align very well. So she's probably always going to have that issue. So we tried to give her as many comforts as possible. 1 week before the introduction, though, we had to get Bolt and Luna back together because they were going to join the exhibit pack, and we needed them to have a relationship and not have their first time back in together in front of two adult wolves. So we had a little bit of a rough time, but we finally got them to appreciate their pack pup mates. And on the introduction day on July 30th, there was a completely different response between Aiden and Denali and Luna and Bolts. Bolts, who had hung out with Oscar the dog, who'd been rolled over more times than he can count, he understood that he needed to drop his ears, lick their faces, wag their tails, and submit. And Oscar taught him well, and that worked out pretty well, to the point where Aiden and Denali rarely even focused on Bolts on the introduction day. Luna, on the other hand, who'd had all of her life protected from being rolled over for fear of reoccurring an injury, did not submit, did not show any interest in submitting. As a matter of fact, was rather indifferent to the adult wolves trying to show her some status. Independent is probably the best word we can describe for Luna, and that means that she did what Luna wanted to do when Luna wanted to do it, and that's the way it was. So obviously we recognize that that could be personality driven, could be Luna, could be the way she was raised, by the fact that she was protected from everything in order to protect herself, or it could be that she is the lone female within an exhibit of males, and we know females tend to have a little bit more dominance, a little bit more rank hierarchy, in some cases, in captivity anyways. May not necessarily be the case in the wild. But we saw Luna, again, showing that into the fall of her first year, she was more dominant. Aiden, still trying to assert some status over her, didn't get very far. And Luna just, again, continued to be the dominant pup that she was, and would become the dominant yearling, and would begin asserting her dominance over her packmates. And so that was one of those things that we discovered and we could appreciate, and it shaped the way that bolts interacted in the pack as well as the way Luna interacted. We basically saw a pup yearling who needed food and needed food now, needed food on a regular basis. So we had to modify feeding a little bit and make sure that Luna got whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, which I guess is not much different than what she got as a pup. But certainly a lot of investment in Luna and making sure that she was going to be able to manage. So again, that first winter was a little bit cold for her. We had a lot of straw beds to make sure that she was warm, and she developed into a full-blown adult without any troubles. As a matter of fact, the troubles were more for Denali than it was for anyone else. Luna seemed to focus on Denali primarily because he was the bottom of the male rank order, and that certainly gave her opportunity to assert herself. And you can see here the size difference is pretty tremendous between Luna and Bolts, but it just demonstrates that status has a lot to do with psychological rather than only physical. By the fall of 2013, again, Luna, coming into the fall, grew a very nice winter coat, very glossy, very good condition. We weren't convinced that we had completely solved her vitamin D deficiency that created the bone density problem. So we continue in supplements, we continue in special feedings, we continue to make sure that she has a vitamin D load on a daily basis. And this was the fall when we discovered that Luna became a little bit more predatory, and some of her predatory behavior manifested itself into watching the highlights of the Ambassador Wolf DVD inside the auditorium. She would actually watch TV and get a little annoyed if people were standing in front of her way, in front of the TV. So that was kind of an interesting little Luna side bit. We really had hoped to see some pair bonding by the winter of 2013 and 2014, with Aiden and Luna kind of taking on a little bit more of a social role in pair bonding together instead of just a dominant role. Well, we had some previous experience with that when Shadow and Maya were leading this pack. We saw pair bonding. We saw what we call parallel gating, walking side by side in perfect step. Unfortunately, with Luna, the side by side was maybe in step, but not quite that social. Here's Aiden doing a little bit of a jump away from Luna, and here's Denali trying to get away from Luna as well, who's about to steal his bone. So we saw some social behavior, but not necessarily the pair bonding that we had hoped for. We continue to see Aiden extremely strong in his bonding to Bolts, and a lot of social behavior, a lot of grooming behavior, and Bolts fits right in with the male rank order. Luna, she's got a little bit of work to do to understand how you treat your dominant male. Grabbing him by So here we are, March 2014. Luna doing an avert gaze, Denali doing an avert gaze. Nobody wants to look at each other, so we're working on it. We're working on social behavior, and again, I think sometimes when you have that isolation and protectionism, when she was a young pup, protecting her fragile state, we probably created a situation where she was not as dependent or not as socially engaged with her fellow packmates. So we know that Luna is always going to be kind of a fragile pup, fragile adult, and we will work with her, but we're certainly happy. And there are many times where we didn't think we'd get this far in celebrating Luna's second birthday, and we don't know what life holds, if this bone density issue is something that may shorten her lifespan, but she's living life to the fullest, and that's really what it's all about. And so we're, again, just amazed that Luna did so well in the winter that never left. So that's it from the Wolf Yard, and again, thank you for watching, and the next birthday coming up is Aiden and Denali on April 27th. So have a good day. Thanks.